Danny Reed had never felt more out of place in his entire life. The classroom stretched out before him like something from a fever dream, with seats designed for bodies that came in shapes Earth had never imagined. Some chairs hung from the ceiling for species that preferred to dangle. Others were filled with water for aquatic students. A few were just flat-heated rocks. He settled into one of the human-compatible seats, which looked almost normal except for being slightly too wide. His roommate Ruth sat beside him, already chatting with a blob-like creature that communicated through color changes on its transparent skin. Professor Hollowsong entered the room with a flutter of iridescent feathers. She was a Vari, a species that looked like someone had crossed a bird with a person and made it work somehow. Her wings folded neatly against her back as she tapped the podium with one talon. "Welcome, students, to cultural biology," she said in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. "This semester, we will explore how different species interact with the life forms on their homeworlds. Your first assignment is the companion showcase." Danny leaned forward, interested despite his nervousness. This was only his second week at the Galactic Academy, and everything still felt overwhelming. Earth had joined the galactic community just 5 years ago, and humans were still the newcomers everyone stared at. "Each of you will present your homeworld's most common companion animal," Professor Hollowsong continued. "This will help us understand the relationships between sapient species and the creatures they choose to share their lives with. You have 2 weeks to prepare." Around the room, students began talking excitedly. A small amphibious creature named Pip bounced in her water-filled seat. "I brought Bubbles, my luminous jellyfish. Everyone will love her." Ruth nudged Danny. "Did you bring anything from Earth?" "Yeah," Danny said slowly. "I brought Rex. Your dog? Perfect, dogs are great." Danny was not so sure. He had grown up with Rex, a German shepherd his family had raised from a puppy. Rex was loyal, smart, and gentle with Danny's little sister. But looking around the classroom at the other students, Danny started to worry. These aliens were small. The largest student in the class was maybe 4 feet tall. Rex weighed 90 pounds and stood waist-high when on all fours. After class, Danny walked through the station's corridors with Ruth. The walls were transparent in places, showing the stars beyond. Other students passed them, giving Danny the usual curious looks. Humans were still a novelty here. "I need to research what other people consider pets," Danny said. Ruth pulled out her data pad, already on it. "Look at this." She showed him a file. Danny's stomach sank as he read. The Quellan people kept small floating creatures that ate minerals and glowed softly. The Rillian species raised tiny 6-legged mammals that cooed and never grew larger than a fist. The Havorn kept mobile plants that responded to emotions with color changes. "They're all so small," Danny said. "And gentle." "Well, yeah," Ruth said, scrolling through more entries. "Most species bred their companions to be completely harmless over thousands of years. No teeth, no claws, nothing dangerous." Danny thought about Rex's teeth. He thought about the way Rex could run at 30 miles per hour. He thought about the videos he had seen of wolves, Rex's ancestors, taking down prey animals twice their size. "Ruth, I think I made a mistake." "What do you mean?" "Look at these creatures. They're like living stuffed animals. Rex is a predator." Ruth stopped walking. Her expression shifted from casual to serious. "Danny, when exactly did you last read about wolf domestication?" "I don't know. School may be why." She pulled up another file. "Because dogs aren't just predators. They're the descendants of apex predators that humans somehow convinced to be friends. Do you know how insane that sounds?" Danny had never thought about it that way. Rex was just Rex, the dog who slept on his bed and brought him toys to throw. But Ruth was right. Wolves had been dangerous. They had hunted in packs. They had been competitors with early humans for food and territory. "How did we even do that?" Danny asked. "No one knows for sure. Best guess is that some wolves started hanging around human camps for scraps. The friendlier ones got fed more. Humans kept the nice ones around because they barked when predators came near. Over thousands of years, they changed. We changed them, and they changed us." They reached the dormitory wing. Danny's room was small but comfortable, designed to mimic Earth-normal conditions, and there, waiting by the door, was Rex. The dog's tail wagged immediately when he saw Danny. He made a small happy sound and pressed his head against Danny's leg. Danny scratched behind Rex's ears, feeling the softness of his fur. "Good boy," Danny said automatically. "Did you miss me?" Rex's tail wagged harder. Ruth watched them. "You're worried the other students will be scared of him." Wouldn't you be? If you'd never seen a predator before and someone brought one to class? Maybe. But Danny, excluding Rex means lying about Earth. Humans are who we are partly because we bonded with these guys. That's special. That's worth showing. Danny sat down on the floor. Rex immediately laid down beside him, putting his heavy head on Danny's lap. The dog's brown eyes looked up at him with complete trust and affection. I don't want to scare anyone, Danny said quietly. Then we'll prepare them. We'll explain everything first. We'll show them why dogs aren't dangerous to us, why this bond matters. Ruth knelt down and carefully offered her hand to Rex. The dog sniffed it and licked her fingers. See, he's gentle when he wants to be. When he wants to be, Danny repeated. That's what worries me. These other species don't have animals that choose to be gentle. Their companions were bred to have no choice. Ruth stood up and looked Danny in the eye. That's exactly why you need to present Rex. The galaxy needs to understand that humans didn't conquer nature by eliminating danger. We made friends with it. That's the most human thing ever. Danny spent the rest of the evening thinking. He watched Rex sleep in the corner of his room, paws twitching as he dreamed. What did dogs dream about? Chasing rabbits? Playing fetch? Or did some ancient part of their brain still dream of running with the pack, hunting under the moon? He pulled up information about the other students. Many came from species that had been prey animals in their evolutionary past. The Chitic people looked like large insects, and their ancestors had been hunted by bird-like creatures. The Quellan had evolved from amphibians that lived in constant fear of being eaten. Even Professor Hollowsong's species had once fled from ground-based predators. These people had spent millions of years making their world safe. They had eliminated the large predators, bred the small animals to be harmless, and created societies where danger was almost unknown. And here came humanity. Bringing their tame wolves to show and tell, Danny made his decision. He would present Rex, but he would do it right. He would explain everything, give everyone time to prepare, and make sure no one felt forced to interact with Rex if they were uncomfortable. He would show the galaxy what it meant to be human, to walk side by side with creatures that could hurt you but chose not to. He just hoped the galaxy was ready to understand. The first showcase presentations began 3 days later, and Danny attended every single one. He needed to understand exactly what he was dealing with, what the normal definition of a companion animal meant to the rest of the galaxy. Pip went first, bouncing with excitement in her specialized suit that kept her moist skin comfortable in the station's standard atmosphere. She wheeled in a container of water that floated through artificial gravity manipulation. Inside, a creature that looked like a jellyfish made of pure light drifted peacefully. "This is Bubbles," Pip announced proudly. "She's a luminous drifter from my homeworld of Quella 5. Drifters feed on dissolved minerals in water. They can't bite because they have no mouth. They can't sting because they have no defense mechanisms. We bred them that way over 10,000 years ago." Bubbles pulsed with soft blue and purple light. The other students cooed with appreciation. Even Professor Hollowsong looked charmed, her feathers fluffing up in pleasure. "Drifters bond with their owners through light patterns," Pip continued. "Watch this." She tapped her webbed fingers against the container in a rhythm. Bubbles responded by flashing in the same pattern. "She knows me. She's happy to see me." "Beautiful," Professor Hollowsong said. "Thank you, Pip. Who would like to go next?" A tall, thin creature named Reedsong volunteered. He came from a high-gravity world, and he moved slowly in the station's lighter environment. His companion was even more unusual than Bubbles. "This is Singer," Reedsong said, gesturing to what appeared to be a slug the size of a football. Its skin looked crystalline and reflected light in rainbow patterns. "Singer is a gravity slug from my homeworld. They move very slowly and eat rock dust. Every evening they sing," another student asked. Reedsong produced a small bowl of mineral powder. He placed it near Singer. The slug moved toward it at a glacial pace, and as it began to feed, a sound emerged from it. A low, beautiful hum that seemed to resonate in the bones. The entire class fell silent, listening. The song was simple but somehow moving, like the sound of wind through crystal caves. When Singer finished eating, the humming stopped. "They sing to communicate with each other in the wild," Reedsong explained. "We don't know why they do it, but it's peaceful to listen to." More students presented over the following days. A Chitic named Grey Whisper showed his collection of decorative beetles that arranged themselves into living patterns. A reptilian student named Scales demonstrated her warmth lizard. A creature that existed only to bask and radiate heat. A gaseous being presented floating spores that responded to sound by changing their drift patterns. Every single companion was small, harmless, and had been selectively bred for countless generations to be the perfect non-threatening pet. Some barely qualified as animals at all, being more like mobile plants or simple creatures with almost no awareness beyond basic stimulus response. Danny sat through each presentation, and his anxiety grew. These weren't just different from Rex, they were from a completely different category of existence. These were living decorations, simple creatures that provided comfort through their mere presence. They didn't bond with their owners through loyalty or affection. They bonded through instinct, through breeding, through having no other choice. After the latest round of presentations, Ruth found Danny in the cafeteria. He was staring at his food without eating while Rex lay under the table. The dog had become a familiar sight in the human section of the station, though other species still gave him a wide berth. "You're spiraling," Ruth said, sitting down across from him. "Did you see that last one? The comfort sphere? The furry ball that literally only exists to be held? It doesn't have a brain, Ruth, not a real one. It has a nerve cluster that responds to touch by releasing pleasant smells. That's it. That's what the galaxy thinks a companion animal is." Ruth reached under the table and let Rex sniff her hand before petting him. "And Rex has a brain comparable to a human toddler. He can learn hundreds of words, solve problems, feel emotions. He's not a living decoration. That's the problem. These species don't want their companions to think. They want them to just exist and be cute and safe. So show them something different." Danny finally looked up at her. "What if they're right to be scared? What if bringing a predator around them is actually dangerous?" "Is it?" "No, I mean not if Rex is with me and properly managed." "But they don't know that. All they'll see is teeth and claws and size." Ruth was quiet for a moment. "You know what I've noticed? Every species here eliminated their large predators millions of years ago. The Avari used to have ground hunters that ate their ancestors. They killed them all. The Shitik had aerial predators. Gone. The Quellan had amphibious hunters, extinct. Your point? They solved the problem of predators by getting rid of them entirely. Humans solved it differently. We made friends with them, and that scares them because they can't imagine it." A voice interrupted them. "May I sit here?" Danny looked up to see Grey Whisper, the Chitic student with the decorative beetles. His insectoid features were hard to read, but his antennae were positioned in what Danny had learned was a gesture of politeness. "Sure," Danny said. Grey Whisper settled into a seat, his multiple legs folding beneath him. He looked at Rex under the table, and his antennae twitched nervously. "I wanted to talk to you about your upcoming presentation. Word has spread that you're bringing a carnivore." "I am. The other students are concerned." Danny felt his jaw tighten. "Rex won't hurt anyone." "Forgive me, but how can you be certain?" "I've researched your canines. They descend from pack hunters. They have powerful jaws. They're fast and strong. They're also loyal and trainable and have been living with humans for 30,000 years. Grey Whisper's antennae drooped slightly. "You must understand our perspective. My species' greatest nightmare, genetically encoded into our very being, is being hunted. The sight of a predator triggers responses we cannot control." Danny was about to argue when Ruth kicked him under the table. She gave him a look that said, "Listen." "I'm sorry," Danny said, forcing himself to calm down. "I didn't think about that." "About the genetic fear thing. It's not your fault. You grew up with predators. You don't fear them the way we do." Grey Whisper paused. "But I wanted to ask, why do you keep them? Why take the risk?" Danny looked down at Rex, who had fallen asleep with his head on Danny's foot. "Because they're not just pets. They're partners. Rex doesn't obey me because he was bred to have no choice. He obeys me because he wants to. Because we trust each other. Trust a predator? Trust a friend who happens to be a predator. There's a difference." Grey Whisper was silent for a long moment. "I would like to attend your presentation. From a safe distance, if possible. I'm planning to have a barrier option for anyone who wants it." "Good. Because despite my fear, I find your relationship with this creature fascinating. Terrifying, but fascinating." Grey Whisper stood to leave, then hesitated. "One more question. If your Rex is a predator, what does that make humans?" Danny had never thought about it quite that way. "I guess it makes us the species that convinced predators to be our friends instead of our competition." After Grey Whisper left, Ruth grinned. "See, he's scared but curious. That's a good sign. Danny spent the next week preparing his presentation. He created detailed files explaining canine domestication, showing the evolution from wolf to dog. He included safety statistics, training methods, and the science behind the human-dog bond. He even found research papers about oxytocin release when humans and dogs looked at each other. The same hormone that bonded parents to children. Professor Hollowsong called him to her office 2 days before his presentation. Her office was decorated with plants from her homeworld, and she perched on a specialized stand designed for her species. Danny, I've reviewed your materials. I have concerns. I understand, Professor. I've taken every safety precaution. It's not just about safety. It's about appropriateness. She pulled up an image of Rex on her screen. This animal is larger than most of my students. Its jaws can exert over 200 pounds of pressure per square inch. It can run faster than most species here can react. Rex would never hurt anyone. You believe that. But belief and certainty are different things. She fixed him with her bird-like eyes. Why is this so important to you? You could present information about dogs without bringing one here. Danny thought about how to explain. Because facts on a screen don't show what it means. They don't show the relationship. If I just tell people about dogs, they'll see monsters we keep in our homes. If I show them Rex, show them how we interact, maybe they'll understand that we're not crazy, that this bond is real and meaningful and has shaped both our species. Professor Hollowsong's feathers ruffled, a sign of deep thought. And if your demonstration goes wrong, if Rex becomes frightened and acts on instinct, then I'll take full responsibility. It's not about responsibility, Danny. It's about understanding the weight of what you're attempting. You're asking students from prey species to be in the same space as an apex predator. That's not a small thing, I know, Professor. That's why I have the barrier option and safety protocols. She was quiet for a long moment. Proceed with your presentation. But Danny, understand that you're not just showing them a pet. You're showing them a piece of human nature they may not want to see. Danny left her office with those words echoing in his mind. Maybe that was the real issue. Maybe the galaxy wasn't ready to see what humans really were. A species that walked with predators and called them family. The presentation room had been modified overnight. A transparent barrier made of reinforced material now divided the space in half, with seating on both sides. Students could choose to observe from behind the barrier or sit in the open section with Danny and Rex. Danny suspected most would choose the barrier. He arrived an hour early with Ruth to do final checks. Rex trotted beside him on a leash, tail wagging, completely unaware of the stress he was causing. Security Officer Brock was already there, running his own inspection. The Torden officer looked like a turtle that someone had scaled up to 7 feet tall and given body armor. "Reed," Brock said in his rumbling voice. "I've reviewed your safety plan. It's thorough." "Thank you, sir. I still think this is a terrible idea." Brock looked down at Rex, who looked back up at him with friendly curiosity. "This creature is a liability. He's not a creature. He's Rex, and he's been around hundreds of people without incident. Hundreds of humans. These students are not human." Brock knelt down slowly, keeping his eyes on Rex. The dog's ears perked forward with interest. "I come from a predator species myself. My ancestors hunted in the deep waters. I recognize the signs." "What signs?" "Intelligence, awareness, the way he watches everything, processes information, decides how to respond." Brock stood back up. "Your companion is not like the others presented here. He thinks, is that a bad thing? It's a dangerous thing when the thinker has teeth." Brock moved toward the exit. "I'll be stationed right outside. At the first sign of trouble, this demonstration ends." After Brock left, Ruth helped Danny set up his presentation materials. They had charts showing the timeline of dog domestication, images of different dog breeds, and video clips of dogs performing various tasks: herding sheep, guiding blind people, detecting diseases, comforting trauma survivors. "You're shaking," Ruth observed. Danny looked at his hands. She was right. What if this goes really badly? Then we deal with it. But Danny, you've prepared everything perfectly. Rex is well trained. The safety measures are in place. Now you just have to trust yourself. Students began filing in 30 minutes before the presentation was scheduled to start. Danny watched through the barrier as they entered, saw the exact moment when each one spotted Rex. The reactions were universal: a freeze response, a step backward, eyes widening. Gray Whisper entered and immediately moved to the barrier side, his antennae flat against his head in distress. Pip came in wearing her moisture suit, and her big amphibian eyes went even bigger when she saw Rex. She hesitated, then chose a seat right in the middle, neither in the barrier section nor the open area. More students arrived. Most chose the barrier side. A few brave ones sat in the open section, but as far from Rex as possible. The room filled up with nervous energy, students whispering to each other in various languages that Danny's translator implant struggled to keep up with. Professor Hollowsong arrived last. Her feathers pressed tight against her body, a sign of tension in her species. She took a position near the exit, clearly ready to evacuate everyone if needed. Danny's mouth was dry. He gave Rex a treat and commanded him to sit. The dog obeyed immediately, settling into a calm sitting position. His tongue lolled out in a happy pant. "Whenever you're ready, Danny," Professor Hollowsong said. Danny stood up and faced the class. 47 pairs of eyes stared at him. 47 students from dozens of different species all looking at him like he had brought a live bomb to class. "Thank you all for coming," Danny began, his voice only shaking slightly. "I know Rex looks scary. I know many of you have never seen a predator this close before. So first I want to explain what he is and where he came from." He brought up the first slide showing Earth's timeline. 30,000 years ago, give or take, there were no dogs. There were only wolves. Wolves were apex predators that hunted in packs. They competed with early humans for food and territory. By all logic, wolves and humans should have been enemies. Next slide. A wolf approaching a human campfire. But something happened. Maybe some wolves were less afraid of humans. Maybe they were attracted to the scraps of food around human camps. Maybe humans saw value in having animals that would bark when other predators approached. We don't know the exact beginning. What we know is that somehow, impossibly, a partnership formed. The room was silent. Even the students who had been whispering had stopped. Over thousands of years, wolves that were friendlier to humans had more puppies. Humans kept the wolves that were gentle and drove off the aggressive ones. The wolves changed. Their faces became more expressive. Their ears could move in ways that wolf ears couldn't, to show emotion. They developed the ability to read human facial expressions better than any other animal, even better than our closest genetic relatives. Danny showed images of different dog breeds. These are all descended from wolves. We shaped them through selective breeding. But here's the important part, they shaped us too. He brought up brain scan images. When a human looks at their dog, their brain releases oxytocin. That's the same hormone released when a mother looks at her baby. When a dog looks at their human, their brain does the same thing. We bonded at a neurological level. They're not our property. They're our family. Pip raised a webbed hand. But they still have the predator parts, right? The teeth and the speed? Yes. Dogs can be dangerous if they're trained to be or if they're scared or protecting someone. But that's the point. They have the capacity for danger, and they choose not to use it. That's what trust means. That's what partnership means. Gray Whisper's voice came from behind the barrier, filtered through the speaker system. You're saying your species domesticated an apex predator and then trusted it to live in your homes with your young? Yes. That's insane. Maybe. Or maybe it's human. Danny gestured to Rex, who was still sitting calmly. Can I show you what I mean? Nervous shuffling from the students. Professor Hollowsong's feathers were still pressed flat, but she nodded permission. Danny unclipped Rex's leash. Several students gasped. One got up and moved to the barrier section immediately. Rex, come, Danny said. The dog stood and walked to Danny's side, his movements fluid and controlled. His tail wagged slowly. Sit. Rex sat. Down. Rex lay down, settling his head on his paws. Good boy. Danny pulled out a treat and tossed it a few feet away. Rex's eyes tracked it, but he didn't move. Stay. The dog remained perfectly still, every muscle showing restraint. His eyes flickered between Danny and the treat, waiting. Okay. Rex sprang forward, grabbed the treat and returned to Danny's side, tail wagging happily. The students were watching with what looked like stunned fascination. The demonstration continued. Danny showed how Rex could follow complex commands, how he understood dozens of words, how he could solve simple problems like opening doors or finding hidden objects. He's not a mindless companion, Danny explained. He thinks. He makes decisions. He has preferences and feelings. Watch this. Danny pulled out Rex's favorite toy, a ratty old rope that had been through countless games of tug-of-war. Rex's whole body language changed. His tail wagged faster. He made a small, excited sound. "Do you want to play?" Danny asked. Rex barked once, a sharp, loud sound that made several students jump. "Okay, fetch." Danny threw the rope across the room. Rex bounded after it, grabbed it, and brought it back, dropping it at Danny's feet. His whole body wiggled with joy. This is play. He doesn't do this because he's programmed to. He does it because it's fun, because it makes him happy. Danny knelt down and roughed up Rex's fur. The dog leaned into the touch, eyes closing in contentment. Scales, the reptilian student, spoke up from the open section. "Can I ask a question?" "Of course. What stops him from attacking you? Or us? What's the control mechanism?" Danny looked at Rex, then back at the class. "There's no mechanism. No control chip, no breeding that removed his aggression. What stops him is the same thing that stops you from attacking your classmates. He doesn't want to. We're his pack, his family. Hurting us would be like you hurting your own family. But he could if he wanted to," Scales pressed. "Yes, just like I could hurt you if I wanted to. Just like any of us could. Having the capacity for violence isn't the same as being violent. Rex chooses every day to be gentle with the people he loves. That choice, that trust, that's the relationship." A long silence filled the room. Danny could feel his heart pounding. This was the moment. Either they would understand or they wouldn't. Then Pip did something that shocked everyone. She stood up from her middle ground seat, walked past the barrier line, and approached the open section where Danny and Rex waited. "Can I meet him?" she asked, her voice small but determined. Professor Hollowsong tensed. "Pip, you don't have to." "I want to." Danny looked at the small amphibian student. She was trembling but walking forward anyway. "You can. Just move slowly and let him sniff your hand first. Don't make direct eye contact. That can seem threatening to dogs." Pip approached carefully. She was barely 3 feet tall, and Rex outweighed her by at least 60 pounds. She extended one webbed hand, shaking visibly. Rex's nose twitched. He leaned forward and sniffed her hand, his tail starting a slow wag. Then very gently he licked her fingers. Pip made a sound that was half gasp, half laugh. "He's warm and soft. You can pet him if you want." Slowly, carefully, Pip touched Rex's head. Her 3-fingered hand stroked his fur. Rex sat perfectly still, as if understanding that this moment was important. His tail continued its gentle wag. "Hello, Rex," Pip whispered. "You're not so scary after all." And just like that, something shifted in the room. Another student stood up, then another. By the end of the presentation, 6 students had crossed into the open section to meet Rex. Each interaction was careful and supervised, but each one successful. Gray Whisper never left the barrier section, but as the class ended, he approached the transparent wall. Rex had returned to Danny's side, tired from all the attention. "I'm still terrified," Gray Whisper admitted. "Every instinct tells me to run, but I understand something now." "What's that?" Danny asked. "You're not brave because you're not afraid. You're brave because you are afraid and you trust anyway." Gray Whisper's antennae twitched. Maybe that's the real difference between humans and the rest of us. You make friends with your fear instead of eliminating it. 3 days after the presentation, Danny noticed the change. Students no longer gave him such a wide berth in the corridors. Some even waved. Pip had started eating lunch at his table regularly, asking endless questions about Earth and its animals. Gray Whisper still kept his distance, but he no longer flinched when Rex walked by. The real surprise came from Professor Hollowsong herself. She requested that Danny and Rex attend an additional session for faculty members who wanted to learn more about human-animal relationships. Apparently, his presentation had sparked debates across the entire academy about domestication, predators, and the nature of companionship. Danny found himself becoming something of a minor celebrity. Other humans on the station contacted him, amused and proud that someone had finally shown the galaxy what dogs were really about. Ruth teased him about being famous, but she was proud too. Then came the day everything changed. It started as a normal afternoon. Danny was in the recreational area with Rex, throwing a ball down the long corridor while a handful of students watched. Rex bounded after it with pure joy, his claws clicking on the metal floor. He brought it back every time, dropping it at Danny's feet with his tail wagging. Pip was there, along with Scales and a few other students who had become regular observers of Rex's play sessions. They were laughing at Rex's enthusiasm when the alarms began. The sound was sharp and urgent, echoing through the station's corridors. Red lights flashed along the walls. Everyone froze. "Emergency," a mechanical voice announced. "Containment breach in Xenobiology Lab 7. All personnel evacuate the education wing immediately." Security responding. Danny's blood went cold. The education wing was exactly where they were. Lab 7 was 3 corridors away. "What does that mean?" Pip asked, her voice high with fear. Before anyone could answer, they heard it. A sound that triggered something primal in every species present. A roar of rage and fear combined. It echoed through the corridors, getting closer. "Move," Danny commanded, trying to keep his voice steady. "Everyone head toward the main atrium, now." The students began running. Danny clipped Rex's leash back on and followed, but his mind was racing. What had escaped? The Xenobiology lab studied creatures from dangerous worlds, animals that were being researched before approval for general contact. Some of those creatures were highly aggressive. They rounded a corner and saw other students fleeing. A Chitik student slammed into Danny, all 6 legs scrambling for purchase. "Run, it's coming!" "What is it?" "I don't know," big, angry. It already injured a lab technician. Danny could hear it now, closer than before. Heavy footfalls, rapid breathing, and another roar that rattled his bones. They were 50 feet from the intersection that led to safety when the creature appeared. It burst through a doorway to their right, moving fast. Danny got a confused impression of size, maybe 200 pounds in bulk, with 6 legs and a head that was mostly mouth. Its skin was mottled gray and looked thick as armor. It was making sounds of distress, and its eyes were wild with panic. The students in front of Danny scattered in all directions. Pip tried to run but tripped over her own suit, landing hard on the floor. She was directly between the creature and the rest of the group. The creature fixed on her with its multiple eyes. It charged. Danny didn't think. He dropped Rex's leash and ran forward, putting himself between Pip and the charging animal. He spread his arms wide, making himself as large as possible, and yelled at the top of his lungs. The human intimidation display, some part of his brain labeled it, "Make yourself big. Make noise. Don't show fear." The creature skidded to a halt, confused by this new obstacle. It was close enough that Danny could smell it, an acrid alien scent that made his eyes water. Its mouth opened, showing rows of grinding teeth designed for crushing. Behind Danny, Pip was trying to crawl backward. The creature's eyes tracked her movement. It shifted, preparing to go around Danny. Then Rex acted. The German shepherd placed himself between Danny and the creature. He didn't attack. He didn't even bark. He simply stood there, body low, hackles raised, lips pulled back to show his teeth. A growl emerged from him that Danny had never heard before. Deep primal, carrying 30,000 years of predator instinct. The escaped creature stopped. Its head tilted, confused. Here was something smaller than itself, but the signals it was receiving said danger. This was a predator, and predators meant threat. Rex held position. His eyes never left the creature. Every line of his body communicated a message. Back off. Danny's heart was hammering so hard he thought his ribs might crack. "Rex, easy," he said, his voice shaking. "Easy, boy." The creature took a step back. Rex moved forward 1 step. The growl continued, steady and warning. "Everyone behind me," Danny called out without looking away from the confrontation. He could hear shuffling as students moved. Pip scrambled to her feet and ran past him to safety. The standoff continued. The creature was larger, but Rex had something it didn't: focused intention. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't confused. He knew exactly what he was doing, protecting his pack. Footsteps thundered from both directions. Security Officer Brock appeared with 2 other officers, all carrying containment equipment. They stopped when they saw the scene, 1 human, 1 dog, holding back a creature twice their size. Brock moved with careful precision, flanking the creature. "Reed, keep your position. Don't move." "Not planning to," Danny managed to say. The security team deployed a containment field, a shimmering barrier of energy that slowly enclosed the escaped creature. It turned to face this new threat, and that was all the opportunity they needed. The field closed completely, and the creature was trapped in a safe bubble of force. Only then did Rex relax. His hackles lowered. The growl stopped. He looked back at Danny with an expression that seemed to ask if he had done good. "Good boy," Danny said, his voice cracking. "Such a good boy." His legs gave out and he sat down hard on the floor. Rex immediately came to him, licking his face, whining softly. The dog's tail was tucked. He had been scared too, but had acted anyway. Brock approached slowly. The Torton officer looked at Danny, then at Rex, then back at Danny. The containment breach was caused by a maintenance error. The creature is a herbivore from a high-stress world. It wasn't attacking. It was panicking, trying to find a way out. It was going to crush Pip, Danny said. Yes, it didn't understand she was a person. To it, she was just an obstacle. Brock knelt down to Rex's level, careful to move slowly. Your companion understood what we did not. The creature needed to be stopped but not harmed. He provided a threat display instead of an attack. That was remarkable judgment. Danny's hand was buried in Rex's fur, holding on like a lifeline. He's protective. That's what dogs do. They protect their pack. Students were emerging from wherever they had taken shelter. Grey Whisper approached cautiously, his entire body trembling. The predator saved us. I don't understand. It's a predator. It should have made things worse. He's not just a predator, Danny said. He's a guardian. There's a difference. Pip pushed through the crowd. Her suit was torn and she was shaking, but she walked right up to Rex and threw her small arms around his neck. The dog stood still, letting her hold him, his tail wagging slowly. Thank you, Pip whispered into his fur. Thank you, Rex. More students came forward. Even Scales, who had been skeptical from the start, reached out to touch Rex's head. The dog accepted the attention with dignity, seeming to understand that something important had happened. Professor Hollowsong arrived, her feathers disheveled from flight. She took in the scene. The contained creature, the security team, Danny sitting on the floor with his dog surrounded by grateful students. Is everyone unharmed? She asked. Yes, Professor, Brock answered. Thanks to Reed and his companion. They held position until we could contain the specimen. Professor Hollowsong looked at Danny for a long moment. Her bird-like eyes were unreadable. Then she did something unexpected. She approached Rex, moving slowly and deliberately. The dog watched her, his tail uncertain. She extended one feathered wing and gently touched the top of Rex's head. Thank you for protecting my students, she said softly. The medical team arrived to check everyone over. Danny was cleared despite his shaking hands and racing heart. Pip had a bruise where she had fallen but was otherwise fine. The lab technician who had been injured by the creature's initial panic would recover fully. As the commotion died down and students were escorted back to their dorms, Ruth found Danny still sitting in the corridor. Rex had his head in Danny's lap, both of them exhausted. You okay? Ruth asked. I think so. That was terrifying. You ran toward the danger. That was either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. Danny scratched behind Rex's ears. But Rex was braver. He knew that thing could hurt him. He did it anyway. That's what love looks like, Ruth said, when you protect something even though you're scared. Later that evening, back in his quarters, Danny sat on his bed with Rex beside him. The dog was sleeping deeply, twitching and whining in his dreams. Processing the day's stress, probably. Danny thought about what had happened. In that moment when the creature had charged, Rex hadn't hesitated. He had seen his family in danger and acted, not with mindless aggression, but with controlled intimidation. He had assessed the threat and responded with exactly the amount of force needed. Presence, not violence. That was the thing the galaxy didn't understand about predators. They thought predators meant danger. They didn't understand that predators also meant protection. The same teeth that could tear could also defend. The same strength that could kill could also guard. Humans had figured that out 30,000 years ago, when the first wolves sat down by the first human fires. Both species had been predators. Both had been dangerous. But together, they had become something new. Partners, protectors, family. Danny's datapad buzzed with messages. Students thanking him. Faculty asking if he was okay. Security requesting a formal statement. And one message from Grey Whisper that made Danny smile. I watched from safety while you and Rex stood your ground. I've never felt more ashamed of my fear and more amazed by your courage. Perhaps predators are not what I thought they were. Perhaps they are what keep the rest of us safe. Thank you. Danny set the pad aside and lay down, careful not to disturb Rex. The dog shifted in his sleep, moving closer to Danny's warmth. Outside, the station continued its eternal orbit, a tiny bubble of life in the vast darkness of space. And in that bubble, 47 students from across the galaxy were learning that sometimes the things that scare you are the things that save you. The Academy's administration convened an emergency meeting the morning after the containment breach. Danny was called to attend, along with Security Officer Brock, Professor Hollowsong, and several members of the Faculty Council. Rex waited outside with Ruth, who had insisted on coming for moral support. The council chamber was an impressive room with seats arranged in a circle to accommodate different body types and species requirements. At the center sat Administrator Swift Current, an aquatic being in a specialized mobility tank. Her species, the Pren, were among the oldest members of the galactic community and commanded great respect. Danny Reed. Administrator Swift Current's voice bubbled through her tank's speakers. We have reviewed the incident reports and security footage from yesterday. We need to understand exactly what happened. Danny stood in the center of the circle, feeling very small and very young. Yes, Administrator. Security Officer Brock spoke first, his deep voice resonating through the chamber. The containment breach was caused by a maintenance error in Lab 7's security systems. The specimen, a grazing animal from the world of Tormo 6, was startled by the alarm and panicked. It broke through the compromised barrier and fled into the education wing, where it encountered students, Professor Hollowsong added, including several from prey species backgrounds who were understandably terrified. Administrator Swift Current's tendrils waved thoughtfully in her tank. And then Reed and his companion intervened. Explain your reasoning, young human. Why did you place yourself in danger? Danny took a breath. Pip was going to be trampled. Someone had to do something. Security was still minutes away. So you acted on instinct. Yes, and so did Rex. You're canine. The administrator pulled up footage on the central display. It showed Rex positioning himself between the creature and the students, his body language aggressive but controlled. This is what I find most interesting. Your companion assessed a threat and responded with precisely calibrated intimidation. No attack, no panic, just a clear warning. A faculty member, a floating gaseous being named Whispermind, spoke up. This contradicts everything we understand about predator behavior. When threatened, predators attack or flee. This animal did neither. Because he's not just any predator, Danny said. He's a dog. Dogs were bred to protect humans. It's not just instinct, it's his purpose. His choice. Choice, Administrator Swift Current repeated. You claim this animal makes choices? Yes, every day. He chooses to be gentle with children. He chooses to obey commands even when he doesn't want to. Yesterday, he chose to protect students he barely knows because they're part of his extended pack. The chamber fell silent. Danny could feel them processing this, trying to fit it into their understanding of how animals worked. For species that had spent millions of years breeding companions to be simple and harmless, the idea of an animal with agency was difficult to grasp. Professor Hollowsong stood. I must admit, Administrator, that I was skeptical of Danny's presentation. I believed bringing a predator to class was unnecessarily dangerous. Yesterday proved me wrong. Rex demonstrated judgment superior to many sapient beings in crisis situations. The question remains, said another council member, an insectoid being similar to Grey Whisper's species. What do we do with this information? The Reed human has exposed our students to a predator, and that predator has now acted aggressively, even if in defense of others. Rex saved lives, Danny said, struggling to keep his voice level. He didn't act aggressively. He acted protectively. There's a difference, is there? The insectoid council member challenged. The footage shows teeth, threatening posture, intimidation displays. These are aggressive behaviors, Brock interrupted, his voice carrying authority. With respect, council member, I am from a predator species myself. I recognize the difference between aggression and protection. The canine could have attacked. He had clear opportunity. He chose restraint while maintaining a defensive position. That is not aggression. That is guardianship. Administrator Swift Current's tendrils moved in complex patterns. This incident has forced us to confront an uncomfortable truth. The galaxy has become very safe. We have eliminated dangers, bred out aggression, created a civilization where violence is almost unknown. But yesterday, when danger appeared, we were helpless, and a predator from a death world was what saved us. The chamber buzzed with conversation. Some council members argued passionately. Others sat in thoughtful silence. Finally, Administrator Swift Current raised a tendril for quiet. Danny Reed, your companion, will not be punished or removed from the station. Instead, I am authorizing a new program of study. We need to understand what humanity has learned about living with predators, about harnessing danger for protection, rather than eliminating it entirely. You and Rex will be central to this research. Danny felt relief wash over him. Thank you, Administrator. Do not thank me yet. This path will not be easy. Many still fear what Rex represents, but perhaps that fear is something we need to confront. The meeting ended and Danny was released. He found Ruth and Rex waiting outside. The dog immediately pressed against Danny's legs, sensing his stress. How did it go? Ruth asked. We're not in trouble. But we're also now part of some kind of research program. Could be worse. Could be expelled. Yeah. Danny knelt down and hugged Rex. The dog licked his face, tail wagging. You did good, boy. Everyone knows it now. Word of the incident and the council meeting spread quickly through the academy. Within days, Danny noticed a shift in how students interacted with him and Rex. The fear was still there for many, but it was now mixed with respect and curiosity. Grey Whisper began attending training sessions where Danny worked with Rex, always from a safe distance but watching intently. I am trying to overcome my instincts, he explained. If I can understand this bond, perhaps I can understand why my ancestors were wrong to eliminate all our predators. Pip went further. She asked Danny to teach her how to interact with Rex properly, how to read his body language, how to understand what he was feeling. She spent hours watching the dog, taking notes, asking endless questions. On my world, we have no large animals left, she said one afternoon as Rex napped nearby. We got rid of them 5 million years ago when we achieved space travel. We decided they were too dangerous, too unpredictable. Now our biggest wild animal is about the size of your hand. Do you regret it? Danny asked. I never thought about it before. But watching Rex, seeing what you have with him, I wonder what we lost. Not just the animals themselves, but the relationship with them. The trust. The partnership. She looked at Danny with her large eyes. Your species kept the danger. You just learned to live with it. We didn't have much choice. Earth is still full of predators. We had to adapt. No, Pip said thoughtfully. You could have killed them all. Many species did. You chose differently. You made friends instead. The new research program officially started 2 weeks after the incident. It was run by Professor Hollowsong and a team of xenobiologists, psychologists, and cultural anthropologists. Danny and Rex were the primary subjects, but the program also reached out to other humans on the station and across the galaxy who had relationships with Earth animals. They studied everything: how dogs learned, how they communicated, what brain chemistry drove the human-canine bond. They compared it to the relationships other species had with their simple companions. The differences were striking. During one session, Professor Hollowsong showed Danny brain scans. When you interact with Rex, your brain lights up in the same areas associated with parent-child bonding. But there's more activity in areas related to cooperation and mutual benefit. You don't see him as a child or a possession. You see him as a partner. That's because he is a partner. Yes, and that's what we missed. My species and most others in the galaxy, we created companions that depend on us completely. They can't survive without us. They exist only to please us. But Rex could survive without you, couldn't he? Danny thought about it. Maybe he's domestic, not wild. But he's smart enough and strong enough that he could probably manage. Yet he chooses to stay with you. That's the partnership. He doesn't stay because he's been bred to have no other option. He stays because he wants to. The research revealed something else interesting. Other species began questioning their own relationships with animals. The Chitic people started discussions about reintroducing some of the species they had eliminated. The Avari considered breeding programs to restore traits their companion animals had lost. The conversation was spreading. Danny was invited to give presentations at other institutions across the galactic network. He spoke via hologram to audiences on a dozen worlds, Rex sitting calmly beside him throughout. Each time the reactions were similar: initial fear, then fascination, then a growing understanding that humans had discovered something valuable. One evening, Danny returned to his quarters to find a message from Earth. It was from his little sister, who was 9 years old and missed Rex terribly. Danny, everyone at school knows about Rex now. They showed the video of him protecting those alien kids. My teacher said Rex is a hero. I told her he's always been a hero, but now everyone knows it. I miss you both. Come home soon. Danny showed the message to Rex even though the dog couldn't read. But Rex knew Danny's little sister, and hearing her voice in the recording made his ears perk up and his tail wag. "We're making a difference, boy," Danny said. "The whole galaxy is starting to understand what you are, what we are together." Rex just wagged his tail and rested his head on Danny's lap, content with the simple truth that his person was there and everything was right with the world. Outside, Station Harmony continued its endless orbit. Inside, 47 students from across the galaxy went to sleep with new thoughts in their minds. Thoughts about predators and prey, about danger and safety, about fear and trust. And in the center of it all, one human and one dog, proving every day that the greatest partnerships are built not by eliminating danger, but by choosing to trust despite it. 6 months had passed since the containment breach incident. The Academy had changed in ways both obvious and subtle. The research program studying human-animal bonds had expanded into a full department. Students from across the galaxy applied specifically to study what they now called partnership domestication, rather than traditional companion keeping. Danny walked through the corridors with Rex at his side, no longer on a leash. The dog had earned the trust of the Academy administration through his consistent behavior and reliability. Students who once fled from him now stopped to pet him. Grey Whisper had progressed from watching from a distance to being able to touch Rex's fur, though his antennae still trembled when he did. But the real changes ran deeper than surface acceptance. The galaxy was having a conversation about safety, about wildness, about what had been lost in millions of years of eliminating anything dangerous or unpredictable from their worlds. Professor Hollowsong had invited Danny to her office for what she called an important discussion. He arrived to find not just the professor but also Administrator Swiftcurrent via hologram, along with several other faculty members he recognized from the council. "Danny, Rex," Professor Hollowsong greeted them warmly. She had changed too over the months. Her feathers no longer pressed flat when Rex entered a room. "Thank you for coming. We have news." "Good news, I hope," Danny said, settling into a chair while Rex lay down beside him. Administrator Swiftcurrent's image shimmered in the holographic display. "Very good news. Your work here has had ripple effects across the galactic community. 3 species have begun programs to study their own lost predator species. The Hitik have successfully cloned and raised several extinct arthropods. The Quellan are debating reintroduction of a predatory fish to their oceans. Even my own people are researching the deep-sea hunters our ancestors eliminated 4 million years ago." "That's amazing," Ruth said. She had been invited to the meeting as well, having become Danny's unofficial research partner. "It is unprecedented," Professor Hollowsong added. "For millions of years, the galactic community has moved in one direction, towards safety, predictability, the elimination of danger. Your species, Danny, has shown us that perhaps we lost something important along that path. The courage to coexist with danger rather than destroy it," said Whispermind, the gaseous faculty member. "This is a profound philosophical shift," Administrator Swiftcurrent continued. "We are therefore proposing the establishment of the Cross-Species Partnership Institute. It will be based here at the Academy, and will study not just Earth animals but any species that has maintained bonds with their world's predators. You, Danny, have been nominated to be a founding member of the research team." Danny felt his jaw drop. "Me? But I'm just a student. I'm only 19. You are the human who brought a wolf to class and taught the galaxy to see beyond their fear," Administrator Swiftcurrent said. "You are exactly who should help lead this work. What would it involve?" Professor Hollowsong pulled up a display showing plans for a new facility. The institute would bring humans to study with their companion animals, dogs, but also cats, horses, birds, and any other species Earth has partnered with. "We would learn from you, and in exchange we would help humanity understand what makes your approach unique." Ruth nudged Danny. "This is huge. You have to say yes. I need to finish my education first. The institute position would count as your advanced studies," Administrator Swiftcurrent explained. "You would be working toward your degree while also teaching others. And Danny, the applications have already begun. We have students from 40 systems wanting to study here, to learn what you know, to understand how to live with danger instead of hiding from it." Over the following weeks, Danny watched the institute take shape. A new wing was added to the Academy, with facilities designed to accommodate Earth animals of various sizes. Other humans were recruited, bringing their dogs, cats, and even a few horses through the long space journey to Station Harmony. The first class of the institute included Pip, who had become fascinated with the idea of aquatic predators. Grey Whisper enrolled as well, determined to overcome millions of years of genetic programming that told him predators were only threats. Even Scales joined, interested in how her people might have evolved differently if they had kept some of their world's hunters. Danny's first lecture to the new class felt surreal. He stood at the front of a room filled with eager students from a dozen species, all wanting to understand something humans had figured out by accident 30,000 years ago. Partnership with predators isn't about controlling them, Danny began. It's not about making them safe by removing what makes them dangerous. It's about mutual respect, trust, and understanding. When humans first encountered wolves, we could have tried to kill them all. Some tribes did, but others saw potential. They saw that these hunters were intelligent, that they valued family and loyalty, that they could learn. He gestured to Rex, who lay calmly at his feet. Dogs still have teeth. They still have the instinct to chase prey. They're still strong and fast. We didn't breed those things away. We just gave them a reason not to use those traits against us. We made them part of our family. A student from a crystalline species raised a limb. But how did trust begin? The first human and the first wolf? They had no reason to trust each other. That's the beautiful part, Danny said. We don't know. Maybe a wolf pup was found orphaned and a human took pity on it. Maybe a particularly bold wolf approached a human camp and was given food instead of violence. Maybe humans observed wolves and admired their hunting strategies and wanted to learn from them. The beginning is lost to time. What matters is that somewhere, somehow, two predator species looked at each other and chose partnership over competition. The class lasted 2 hours. Students asked endless questions. How were dogs trained? What did they eat? How did you know if a dog was happy or sad or scared? Did they dream? Did they love? Yes, Danny answered that last question. They love. Maybe not the way humans define love, but in their own way. Absolutely. Rex loves me. I know it the same way I know my parents love me or my friends care about me. It's in his actions, his choices, the way he responds to me. As if understanding he was being discussed, Rex's tail thumped against the floor. After class, Pip approached with bubbles in her portable tank. Danny, I've been doing research. On my homeworld, there used to be a predatory amphibian called a snapjaw. They went extinct 8 million years ago. But we have genetic samples. You want to bring them back? I want to try partnering with them, the way humans partnered with wolves. It sounds crazy. Everyone thinks I'm insane. But if your species could befriend apex predators, why can't mine? Danny looked at her determined face. It won't be easy. It took humans thousands of years to fully domesticate wolves. I know, but someone has to start. Someone has to take the first step. She paused. Will you help me? Not to do it for me, but to teach me what you know? And Danny realized this was the real impact of what he and Rex had started. It was not just about showing the galaxy that dogs existed. It was about inspiring other species to reconsider their relationship with the wild, dangerous parts of their worlds. To see that eliminating danger also eliminated opportunity. Yes, he said. I'll help. The semester continued. More humans arrived with their animal partners. A woman named Patricia brought her cat, a creature that baffled the students even more than dogs because cats were less obviously obedient, but formed equally strong bonds. A man named Robert arrived with his horse, which was so large that special accommodations had to be made, but which demonstrated another aspect of human-animal partnership: work, cooperation, and mutual dependence. The galactic community watched with increasing interest. News services ran stories about the Institute. Debates raged on communication networks about whether it was wise to bring back predators that had been extinct for millions of years. Some called it progress. Others called it madness. Danny tried to stay focused on the work. He taught classes, helped with research, and continued his own studies. Rex remained at his side through it all, a constant reminder of why this mattered. One evening, 6 months after the Institute opened, Danny received a call from Earth. It was a video message from his parents and his little sister. They were standing in their backyard with a new puppy, Rex's nephew from his brother's latest litter. Danny, we're so proud of you, his mother said, tears in her eyes. You've done something incredible up there. You've made the whole galaxy see what we've always known, that dogs aren't just pets. They're family. His little sister held up the puppy to the camera. We named him Cosmo because he's going to visit you in space someday. Rex needs to teach him everything about being brave. After the message ended, Danny sat in silence with Rex. The dog sensed his emotion and pressed closer, offering wordless comfort. "We did it, boy," Danny whispered. "We showed them what you are, what we are together." Rex's tail wagged and he licked Danny's hand. The final evaluation for Danny's first year at the Institute came from an unexpected source. Administrator Swift Current requested a private meeting, appearing in holographic form in Danny's quarters. "I wanted to speak with you personally," she began. "A year ago, you arrived at this academy as a nervous student with a dog that terrified most of your classmates. Today you are helping reshape how the galaxy thinks about danger, wildness, and partnership. Do you understand the magnitude of what you have accomplished?" "I just showed people my dog," Danny said honestly. "No, you showed people a different way of being brave. For millions of years, the galactic community has equated safety with the absence of danger. We removed predators, bred aggression out of our companions, created worlds where nothing could hurt us. We thought this made us advanced, civilized." The administrator paused. "But yesterday I watched footage of Grey Whisper petting Rex. This student, whose species has avoided all predators for 3 million years, overcame instincts older than civilization itself because you showed him it was possible. That is not just teaching. That is transformation." Grey Whisper did the hard part. He faced his fear. "Because you gave him a reason to. Because Rex proved that predators can be protectors. That danger and trust can coexist. That the strongest bonds are forged, not despite risk, but because of it." Administrator Swift Current's form shimmered as she prepared to disconnect. "The galaxy is changing, Danny Reed, not quickly. Such things never happen quickly. But the conversation has begun. Species that eliminated their predators millions of years ago are questioning that choice. Young people across dozens of worlds are asking why we abandoned wildness in favor of pure safety. And it all started because one human brought his dog to school. After she left, Danny thought about the long chain of events that had led here. An ancient human seeing a wolf and choosing to offer food instead of violence. Thousands of generations of wolves and humans shaping each other. His own choice to bring Rex to the academy despite knowing he would seem strange and frightening. Rex's choice to protect students he barely knew, because that was what dogs did. None of it had been planned. It had just been one choice at a time, one moment of trust building on another, until a partnership emerged that changed 2 species, and now, impossibly, might change many more. Danny looked at Rex, who was sleeping peacefully in his bed, paws twitching as he chased something in his dreams. "You're a good boy," Danny said softly. "The best boy. And you're going to change the galaxy." Rex's tail wagged once in his sleep, and that was all the agreement Danny needed. Outside, Station Harmony orbited in the endless dark. Inside, students from across the galaxy were learning that the bravest thing was not the absence of fear, but the choice to trust despite it. And at the center of that lesson was a young human and an old partnership that proved some bonds were worth the risk. The future would bring challenges. Some species would succeed in reintroducing predators to their worlds. Others would fail. There would be setbacks and dangers and moments when people questioned whether this path was wise. But the conversation had begun and it could not be stopped. Because Danny Reed had brought a predator to class and in doing so, reminded the galaxy what it meant to be truly alive.